Hello, people of the internet. My name is Kay, and welcome to Yas Veritas. It's been a minute since I uploaded. A lot has happened in the last month and change. I got a strike on my channel because apparently Tangled the Series as Vines Part 5, may it rest in peace, goes against the YouTube community guidelines for dangerous or inappropriate content. I ranted about that on my Instagram. I can't get into it right now, but I couldn't upload or even add videos to playlists. However, this content probation gave me some time to check out other videos I've been saving for later. This video unlocked so many memories for me that I could not make a video. So, similarly to how Strawberry did it in their video, I'm going to be taking you through my personal history in the fandom I will be talking about today. But before I do that, Scholastic Book Fairs. If you grew up in the early 2000s, 2010s, then you probably know about Scholastic Book Fairs. In elementary school, we would get sent home with this pamphlet filled with books, games, and sometimes toys from Scholastic. And after you'd fill it out with a parent checking what you wanted, you'd send the form back, and then later in the school year, Scholastic would hold this book fair. I'm having some trouble describing it because I don't know the ins and outs of how it works exactly, but it would happen, and the book series that I'm going to be talking about today is one that I first discovered at a Scholastic book fair. And it all started with this one book, Ruby the Red Fairy by Daisy Meadows. Allow me to introduce you to the Rainbow Magic Fairy book series. Paraphrasing the introduction on the Wikipedia page, Rainbow Magic is a British children's fiction brand originally created by Working Partners and currently owned by Mattel. The books are ghostwritten by a number of authors under the collective pseudonym Daisy Meadows. In the US, the books were published by Scholastic, and some of the titles varied in the US to UK versions. According to the Rainbow Magic Books Wikipedia page, in the main series, there were 214 books published, 63 special edition books published, and 3 planned, 17 one-off books published, 26 early readers' versions of the books published, and nearly 20 companion books. So, if I do the math correctly, give or take a few, that's almost 350 books, give or take a few. Over the course of my lifetime, I can say confidently that I have owned at least 200 of these books. I only have a couple now, as I gave a bunch of them away when I was in middle school, because I was like, oh yeah, I don't need them anymore. I regret that very much now, because I remember being so taken by the characters, by the stories, even though they were often a lot of the same thing. The two main characters, Kirsty Tate and Rachel Walker, met on a vacation to Rainspell Island, where they first encountered the Rainbow Fairies. Ever since then, the two girls would go to each other's houses during school breaks, which they seemed like they were never in school. They were always on break, and they'd always meet up, and every time they would be together, a fairy would show up needing their help. In the main series, 7 of the books would be broken up into fairy types, so to speak. So we have the 7 rainbow fairies, then the 7 weather fairies, then the party fairies, then so on and so on. The special edition books were a little different because they were 3 times the size of a regular book, but the story would be consistent. Kirsty and Rachel would be together for some sort of big event, like a wedding or a major holiday like Christmas or Easter, and there would only be one fairy that would need their help. And they would spend that 3 books worth of book helping that fairy and making sure that fairy is, all right. The main antagonist of the series is Jack Frost. Jack Frost is the king of the goblins, who are mischievous, obnoxious little creatures who are always causing mayhem. They're kind of bumbling, but they often manage to throw a wrench in fairies' plans, stranding them somewhere, placing them in the human world where they don't belong. But the girls are always able to outsmart them pretty easily. Jack Frost is an enemy of the King and Queen of the Fairies, King Oberon and Queen Titania, and the King and Queen don't do a whole lot. I'm not sure if it was them or if it was Ruby, the Red Fairy. At the end of the first series, the Rainbow Fairies, Kirsty and Rachel are given lockets that contain fairy dust that help them transform into fairies to shrink down to their size and help them with fairy-sized problems. But it wasn't just the books that sort of made me fall in love. It was the sort of adaptability of the story. The story was pretty much the same, like I mentioned, from series to series. Kirsty and Rachel would be on some sort of break from school, they would meet up, and then a fairy would show up needing their help. And it made it very easy for me to create my own stories. So yes, I wrote Rainbow Magic Fairy fanfiction. I wrote it on paper. Here are some photos that I'll put up. I thought I was so cool. I was going to write my own version, never before seen stories. Mind you, I was like 7 to 9 at this point. I would write story after story and design characters, but it wasn't until I got access to the internet that this whole experience would change again. There used to be a Rainbow Magic website called rainbowmagic.com that allowed you to come to the home page and see everything in color. The books had color covers, but the illustrations inside were black and white. So I would always wonder what Kirsty and Rachel really looked like. What color was their hair? What clothes did they like? And it was very interesting to sort of go on the website and see them in full color. There were so many fun mini games. I mean, hide and seek with the goblins and Fairyland Rescue were top tier games. There was also a dress up game, so to speak, in which you could create your own fairy. And this changed everything. I remember I would go through so much printer paper and I would create fairy after fairy after fairy. I would obviously create one that looked like me, and then a bunch others I would just make up and sort of, they would have their own stories with each other. I'm going to try to put every photo I can up on the screen that I still have of any fairies I created. The books, the stories and characters I would create based on the books, and the exclusive jewelry that would come in some of the special editions of the books sold only at the Scholastic Book Fair was one thing. It was the fandom experience that really sort of made me fall in love with just content and media. So that's awesome. Hooray for that. Another interesting thing that these books did for me was introduce me to anime. Yes, you heard that right. The Rainbow Magic Fairies book series introduced me to the world of anime. And here is why.
Let's make a little rainbow magic!
On May 7th, 2010, Rainbow Magic Return to Rainspell Island was released. It is a straight-to-video anime movie that was released in the United Kingdom. It's a British-Japanese production, but they only recorded an English dub with Japanese subtitles. This movie had such a chokehold on me. But there was no way to really access it, as it wasn't released in the US. And I went crazy trying to find the full movie. I would watch clips on YouTube. I tried. I never got the full story because I would see, a couple straight minutes and then it would jump somewhere else and then I would have to look more. Yes, it was a musical, and yes, the songs slapped. I mean, look at this.
I like eating from frozen fairies for my lunch. I like eating frozen fairies. They go crunch, crunch, crunch. Yum, crunch, yum, crunch, yum, yum, yum. Yum, 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 yum. Crunch, crunch, yummy, crunch, 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 yum. Yummy, yummy, yum, crunch, yum, yum, yum.
It does not get any more iconic than this. This movie was my everything. And it was this movie that made me interested in other media like it. In searching for clips of this movie, I was recommended other anime clips on YouTube, and I fell in love with another anime series, Dragon Ball, particularly Launch. I thought she was cool. I know not a lot of people know who Launch is, but I loved her. And when I found out that she wasn't in the series anymore, I dropped it. I was like, okay, if she's not there, I don't want to watch it. So I hopped onto another series. I'd watch anime-adjacent things like Avatar: The Last Airbender and Totally Spies for some reason. It wasn't really anime, but it was anime-adjacent. Rainbow Magic opened these floodgates and was like, here, take all of the content. Yeah, and it just... my brain was forever warped. I did recently get to watch a full-length version of the movie on YouTube, I think either in 2019, right before COVID, or during COVID, and that was incredible. It made me sort of fall in love with the idea of, my first little fandom again. There wasn't a real, at least if there was, I wasn't aware of it, a real sort of online space where fans could gather, like a Tumblr page or anything. But even though I couldn't see them, just feeling that they were definitely out there made me feel so sort of excited. I loved this series so much, and it's still such a huge part of my story as a content creator, as a lover of media. It's just like, yeah, of course, the Rainbow Fairies, they introduced me to this whole thing. After a while, I started to see less and less of these books. They were so just present.
Not me crying editing this. Nothing to see here, folks. Look away. This is so stupid.
I'm sure they're still out there. According to the Wikipedia page, there are some new characters. Gracie and Kaja, who appeared at some point. I have not seen them in any of the books I owned or read, but that's cool. I am not really sure how to wrap this up because I've never really done a video like this before, but thank you so much for watching. I love each and every one of you so much. I'm just trying to shift into more stable content that will not get copyrighted or striked or anything. Just be normal and keep YouTube out of my hair. Yeah. I have got so many exciting things to share with you on my second channel about voiceover and my new job. I love what I do right now. I am super excited to keep creating, and I really hope you liked this as much as I loved filming it.
Bye!